So my research during this book shows that the belief in what AI is capable of versus what AI's current actual capabilities are is about a 7-year gap,
Wow.
which means what we believe, and I contribute this to a lot of the media, a lot of the marketing hype by large cloud providers such as Google and Microsoft, IBM, Nvidia, et cetera. All of the investments that are happening in the generative AI space, but also in from movies. So between the media and the hype and the marketing and the messaging out there, where we are versus what we believe is easily a 7-year gap.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Your Customer, Your Success. Today, we are excited to have Chris Hood with us. Chris is a keynote speaker, a strategist, and an author recognized as a thought leader in customer success and digital strategy. With over 3 decades of experience, he has authored the book Customer Transformation and has a new book on the way titled Infallible on artificial intelligence ideology. Chris was named one of the top 30 customer experience gurus by Global Gurus in 2024. His career includes significant roles at Google, Fox, Disney, Universal, and Electronic Arts. Currently, Chris advises companies in the AI, marketing, and gaming industries, and he also teaches at Southern New Hampshire University. Chris is one busy man. Chris, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the show.
Absolutely. Great to be here.
Wow, that is a lot. But our topic today is AI, and your book. I've read the introduction you gave me. Thank you. It's absolutely great. I want to get right to it, but I thought the best way to get right to it today is to talk about a commercial I saw, and I'm an old Cheers fan. Cheers is my favorite show ever. And so anything with, Woody Harrelson or the crew from Cheers catches my eye. But recently, Woody's in a commercial with his buddy Matthew McConaughey. Poor Matthew is sitting off alone in the rain outside awaiting his dinner because he didn't have an app that had AI on it. And Woody, as he peers across the alley, well, he's with his friends covered by an awning, dry as can be, and invites his buddy Matt over because he had an app with AI. So is that the reality we're heading towards? Because I don't know about you. I would have gotten out of the damn rain. But because poor Matt didn't have AI. He was in the soaking wet restaurant.
Yeah, this is an example of the stupidity of hype. you know, I mean, they're painting pictures, they're painting problems that are not realistic, right? I mean,
Right.
that's really what this boils down to. And so the thought that we are too dumb of a society to sit out in the rain because we don't have AI is the moral of this story. Or more importantly, that the restaurant that we are going to is not
Not gonna know it's
attuned
raining.
that they have customers sitting out in the rain and we're serving food out there. Like these are, on one level we can see the comedy behind it, but the deeper meaning of this is that they're basically creating problems that do not exist to try to sell a product that we don't have a problem to solve for, right? And that type of hype and marketing, uh, you know, corruption, really, on some level, is part of what I write about in my new book.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. I thought that was a great way to start because when I first saw that commercial, I was like, it's Woody and Matt. Yeah, it's pretty funny. And then I thought about it, and I go, what the hell's he doing? He's sitting out in the rain. So let's get rolling on the topic. Help us to start to discern how we separate the hype from reality. Where's the steak versus the sizzle? Because it's getting increasingly difficult by the day.
Yeah, the it's the easiest thing to say and yet the hardest thing to do, which is typically the case. You have to educate yourself. You have to go through a process of learning what AI is, what it's capable of, and try to avoid all of the bells and whistles and the propaganda, the hype that is out there. I'll give you a good example, and we can get more deeper into this. I received an email in my inbox from LinkedIn today, and it goes through all of these things related to DeepSeek, which is the new AI that just came out in China. And every single bullet point that this individual put into the message to me had some fallacy to it.
Oh no.
And I don't know if it's because they're just trying to sell me something, which is mostly what is happening out there, or if they genuinely just don't understand the problems, right? That the words they're using don't make sense. It's like if I was to say, "Oh, I've had this best cheeseburger ever, and it was filled with AI deliciousness because I know AI creates these secret sauces now, and it was the most fascinating experience of my life." Like, that doesn't make any sense. And yet people are continually reading stuff, pulling out like snippets or buzzwords, and embedding that into language or to their blog post or to their emails, their cold email calls. And we, as consumers, whether you're a business consumer or a personal consumer, we have to know better if that's real or not. And I think a lot of what's happening right now is that people are starting to become a little bit more educated about the topic. And so they're asking the right questions. But because how rapid things are changing, there's always now something new that somebody could kind of put a little, shiny bow on and say, "Oh no, this is new," and avoid the man behind the curtain type of experience, because this is really what you want and it's going to help you. And that's the problem. We have to educate ourselves more about the capabilities so that we can understand what is hype and what is not.
And right, that's the problem we're all struggling with. And as I continue to use it for my simple tasks, I'm continuing to get frustrated with it. Simple things, it's the solution to everything, seemingly. Yet it can't get simple things right. And I'll give you here's my example. You ready? I brought a prop for the first time ever on your customer your success. We have a prop. My wife ordered online groceries again this weekend, and I don't have a agreement with Annie's deluxe mac and cheese, but I wish I did because she came home with 15 boxes of Annie's deluxe mac and cheese, and the deluxe cost about $5 a box. Okay, but I have like a kid who's a connoisseur of the best mac and cheese around, and he loves this stuff. $85 worth of mac and cheese came home with us. She would have had to hit the button 15 times or typed in 15. She hit auto reorder, right? So somehow 15 boxes of mac and cheese wound up back here the other day. So that's my quick example of how you can't trust the technology. You've got to reconcile the things still, right? And I talked to my guest Sean Albertson on the previous episode about just that because his background's in financial services, and there's some useful tools out there for people like in call centers, etc. But you've got to cut through that hype and get to what actually works.
Yeah, I think the larger issue in this is that we as a society, is slowly losing our critical thinking skills.
Yeah.
And I don't know at what point this happened, but definitely over the course of the last 10 to 15 years. And maybe in part you could blame politics and our alignment with, our personal beliefs. But we have stopped actually caring what is truth and what is not. We align to our belief system. And if we believe it's true, then it must be true. And so the critical thinking of actually educating and learning and figuring out what's fact and fiction, that is a dying skill set for a lot of people. And we are all looking for, oh well, is this an easy way for me to make money, or is this the next big thing, fear of missing out? Like, what is this thing that's driving my decision, without concern of whether or not, again, it's actually going to be beneficial, or on the flip side, whether your consumers care about it or not.
Right. And I think that's just it. It's a chase after, well, geez, this could save us a lot of money. And all right, so you're a customer success and a customer experience expert. Well, let's think about what that means, right? Are you putting the customer first in that scenario? Of course not. So let's take a step back. To you, what does it mean to be customer obsessed, and where does technology fit into the equation?
Yeah, the easy answer to that is, if you're customer first, then the technology is last,
There you go.
right? I mean, and I've talked about this with a lot of organizations, and AI is the perfect example of how we forget about our customer. We want to focus so much on, well, AI, everybody's using it, everybody's adopting it. We've got to get on the bandwagon. We've got to use AI. Well, where are we going to use it? I don't know, but we've got to use it, right? Um, as opposed to asking, what is the problem that our customers have?
Mm.
Let's figure out a way to solve that problem. And then at some point in time, we can figure out what the technology is that is going to solve that problem. And in most cases, especially right now with AI, there are probably 10 other products or technologies out there that will solve that problem. And you don't actually have to use AI to do it. But this, again, it shows you how AI is basically making us dumber because I'll put aside the actual educational element of this, which we can get to, but we are not actually focused again on what is the core problem. The core problem is not the technology. The core problem is how are we going to deliver our products and services to our consumers, solve their problems, and then we can work towards whatever that technology is.
Yeah, and I'm glad you threw in the education thing there, because I've sat right here and tried to help my seventh grader with his math homework, and it's been a little bit of time since I was in seventh grade. And I did the problem. I said, here's how I think you do it. And he did it over there. He the answer, and he said, I think the answer is four. So I kind of did it. I was in trouble. I went into AI and I did the math problem, and AI said seven. I think it's four. And I put it. I asked it again. You're right. It's four. So is AI smarter than a seventh grader? In this case, no, because I've got a very smart one that sits over there and does his homework. But that's a simple example. But let's get back to the reality. What the risks? There are risks to this, right? So what are the risks to leaders who are blindly kind of relying on the FOMO, right, and driving their expectations and their decisions perhaps by the hype?
Yeah, I mean, I'll actually continue on with the education and then get to a leadership perspective. But look, I teach at university level, and what I have seen over the course of the last 1.5 years, about 18, 24 months, is that as AI adoption by my students has increased, the letter grades have decreased. Now, why is there a direct correlation? Some people would say, well, it's because uh, they're cheating, or you're grading them off for the use of AI when they should be actually writing the stuff themselves. It's actually none of that. What's the real problem is that they can't comprehend the materials. They are blindly asking a question, getting a response, cutting and pasting that response into a form, their homework, and they have no idea what it is, what it means, what they wrote, what it's saying. And so when you get to a point where you now have to test and you don't have any tools for testing, they're getting the information wrong because they don't understand it,
Understand it?
let alone that they're cutting and pasting references and citations and materials that are made up and fake, right? That's the
Oh,
biggest problem with
yeah.
ChatGPT is that it's making up stats that don't actually exist. So when you look at that type of level of education and then start to think about this purely from a leadership business perspective, there's really no difference. You as a leader are basically saying, I am willing to put my business in the hands of something that is not necessarily accurate, and my reputation, my brand, my storytelling, my experiences, all the things, the trust that the consumer has related to your brand, you're willing to just kind of flip the coin and say, well, we're okay if it gets it right half of the time. And if it doesn't, then I don't know, we'll figure out how to get around that and come up with a PR statement afterwards. That's the reality of the situation we're in.
Wow, that is brutal. That is tough stuff. So it's I feel like it's getting worse by the day. Although I am feeling a little bit better that there are people that are recognizing this now, and certainly people like yourself that are starting to write about it. And I think that you wrote in your introduction, you wish you wrote the book a year sooner, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, I had literally did a webinar with a group of people, and I was listening to everybody's responses, and that's when I really started to take note of this hype. And I'm like, this none of this is grounded in reality,
It yeah,
And I was, yeah, I probably should have written this a little sooner, but you
I think
know,
you're right on time, though. I think it's really. I mean, a year ago, everybody was all about it, and now just on this program, this podcast, we've had thoughtful people discussing the proper uses of AI. And just my previous episode, same thing. The proper use, it helps agents. That's fine. You can bring 15 tools together and synthesize that, and not have an agent chase around 15 different systems. That's fine. But that's, you're not putting it in front of your customers, and you have a human being synthesizing that understands their job and their role, the results that they're looking at. So, we're getting there, but let's for fun take a giant step back, because you worked with EA, Electronic Arts, and the first time I ever heard the term AI was Madden football. So
hmm.
between that and NHL '94, that's how I know what AI is. So this is nothing new. Everybody's talking about it like it's new. And so talk a little bit about your history with it, when you learned about AI, and I love for you to tell everybody when the first chatbot appeared.
Yeah, it's funny. I have a quote that goes around that says, uh, my quote is, "Hearing AI is here to stay is like hearing somebody talk about AI from 65 years ago." Right? I mean,
Right.
like, this is 65-year-old technology. I mean, the first chatbot was, at least 40 years ago, and we are pretending like it's some new revolutionary thing. What's new and revolutionary is the speed of access, the amount of data that's out there, and our connection, our ability to use AI has changed. But the foundations of what AI is, what it's capable of, hasn't changed too much. And my first experience with AI was actually back in roughly 1991, 1992, where I had built a service for movie theaters. I was working at a movie theater. I was a big fan of the movies. And at my theater, anybody who's familiar with this, I actually cover this story in my book. Back then, you would go in and there would be advertisements on the screen, no different than there is today, but those used to be slide based. So 35 millimeter slides in a carousel, the right,
Right.
every 45 seconds or so.
Hmm.
And what would happen is, as I was going into the theater and I would talk to customers, one of my jobs was actually going in, talking with customers, welcoming them to the theater. I had somebody come up to me and say, do you ever change these slides out? Because in a carousel, you would usually get about 30 minutes of programming. Well, we would open the theater about 45 minutes. And back then, you would actually flood the theater and sit down and have lines. And so people who were in there 45 minutes or so before showtime to get popcorn and relax, they would see those slides rotating over and over and
Over
over.
again.
And part of the problem was sometimes they were flipped upside down, sometimes they were backwards,
Yeah,
whatever the case might be.
I remember those days. Yeah.
And I basically started asking the question, could there be a better way to do this? Could we do it in a digital format? Could we have a database of slides that get animated and presented on the screen? Could we implement some form of AI that would recognize who was in the theater based on the type of movie, the rating of the movie, the location, and then target personalized slide presentations to who's in the theater, and also have various types of advertisements accordingly? And so I actually built that. I built it, I patented it, put it out into the theater system. And then a couple of years later, it got acquired. And pretty much what you see in theaters today, although it's not automated and it's not syndicated in some way, is the original content that I built back in the mid early 90s.
You gotta be
And
kidding.
so it's really interesting because I present this question. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier. I have often thought today, if I was to build sort of, and this product was called Digireel, if I was to build a Digireel version 2 and leverage all of the latest AI and build something, in my head, I'm like, oh, I could build something incredible today with the technology. But the reality is, there's no demand for it. Consumers are no longer going to the theaters early. There is plenty of products out there. We're seeing movie theaters close at an astronomical rate. So it still goes back to the simple question: why build something with new AI technologies when there's no market or demand for it? You have to start with that customer. And so, yeah, I've had a lot of experience with AI over the years, but yeah, it's all
That
changed for sure.
that's an amazing story because yeah, right. There's no market for it. It to me, it's a tool right now to help someone do something and accomplish a simple task. And even at that, it's a struggle. I think. So I think we're a little. I hate this term, but I'll use it. Out over our skis, I believe is the saying. I'm not a skier. But the point is, I think we're a little ahead of ourselves. And how far ahead of ourselves do you think we are?
So, my research during this book shows that the belief in what AI is capable of versus what AI's current actual capabilities are is about a 7-year gap,
Wow.
which means what we believe, and I contribute this to a lot of the media, a lot of the marketing hype by large cloud providers such as Google and Microsoft, IBM, Nvidia, et cetera. All of the investments that are happening in the generative AI space, but also in from movies. We watch Terminator, and we believe our definition of AI is Skynet, right? We watch something like a Wally, and which is probably pretty close to where we're headed. Where you've got people who are adrift on a ship, unaware that life is different. So, and who have all gotten lazy. So between the media and the hype and the marketing and the messaging out there, where we are versus what we believe is easily a 7-year gap.
Wow, that's a lot. I mean, I know we're out ahead of ourselves, but I didn't expect that much of a gap. Interesting. Yeah, I'd love to call my own AI tool Jarvis because I'm an old Avengers fan. So the age of Ultron is almost upon us, but it's about 7 years away. Interesting. So all right, let's keep talking about it, but I guess I want to get to the how-to part of it. Given everything you've summarized for us, what's the how-to? What should leaders be thinking of now to come up with mindful uses of AI, or should they be sitting it out? Or maybe it depends on who you are and what you do. I think is the real answer. But can you kind of summarize that? What should people be thinking of doing now?
Yeah, I'm still going to argue that you have to ask your customers how they want to engage with you, right? It,
Perfect.
it sounds so basic and simple, but any leader who is out there who is thinking about how are we going to use AI should be thinking, what does our customers actually think about AI? And I'll give you a pretty quick example. If you go into a grocery store, Target, or any type of store, you have self checkout lines, and you have a choice. I can go to the self checkout line, or I can go down and actually go to a line with a real person. And we, as individuals, all have our own preferences. And some people actually despise self checkout, and some people love self checkout. But at the end of the day, you have a choice. Yet, if I go to the drive through of Taco Bell right now, I'm presented with an AI agent who is taking my order at the drive through window, and I have no choice. Also, if I go into a Taco Bell, I walk in, they have removed all in person ordering. They have kiosks now across the nation where you actually have to place your order on a kiosk. By the way, the kiosk ordering system is flawed in so many ways, but put that
Hmm.
experience aside, I do not have a choice. And so ultimately, my choice now is, do I go to Taco Bell and know that I have to engage with some sort of AI to place my order? Or do I go to another fast food restaurant that doesn't present me with that option or forcing it upon me? And I think that's one of the biggest questions that leaders and businesses have to ask is, are we forcing this upon somebody, or is this a choice, an option that the consumer can make? And if we give them more choice, that is always going to be better. So it still goes back, though, to what does your customer want? How do they want to engage with you? And then figure out, well, can we implement AI in some creative way to improve the experience, not to change the experience? Because the more we change the expectations of what those experiences are, the more likely we're going to lose those customers.
Yeah, and this is why I love doing this podcast, because I have great guests with diverse backgrounds coming to the same conclusions and coming to similar examples. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago with the checkout lines, right? Just fine, give me a choice, because the grocery store I'm not bad, but I panic when I have produce or something that I have to put a code in for, right? And it doesn't just automatically scan. But the drugstore down the street, it every time it's like you hit the scale or something and think you're stealing something, you got to wait for the manager. Or heaven forbid you cough medicine, you've got to give your ID, and like, I mean, I'm all done with all that. So yeah, interesting stuff. Well, I think it's a perfect segue. So I want to move, if you don't mind, into what's become my favorite segment, and a favorite segment of my audience. Does it hold water? And Does It Hold Water is where we have our guest be our resident expert witness for the day. So we will read a quote from a thought leader, could be someone famous, somebody not. And we will ask our guest, it's in their area of expertise, but they have no idea what I'm asking them, to weigh in on whether or not the defense case holds water, it has a few leaks in it, or what have you. So you ready, Chris?
Already.
I got a good one for you today. So, the defense today is a doctor's office. And recently on LinkedIn, I saw this post from a doctor. It says, imagine a world where AI revolutionizes healthcare by detecting cancer earlier, minimizing misdiagnoses, and tailoring treatments. This vision is now a reality. Machine learning, a subset of AI, has shown remarkable capabilities in enhancing diagnostic accuracy, which can lead to better patient outcomes.
Okay. Is that the statement?
That's the
That's
statement.
the full statement.
That is the whole
So,
statement.
so I will say that that holds a lot of water,
Hmm.
and there's two sides of this. I'll talk about the side that holds the water and the side that does not hold the water,
Okay.
which is good. In general, I think one of the great things that AI and machine learning is going to help us revolutionize is detection of various types of ailments. And we think about like the cure for cancer. I would almost guarantee that within our lifetime, in the course of the next, say, 10 years, AI will probably be contributed with finding a cure for cancer.
Wow.
That's because it can leverage large amounts of data and typically see things that we as humans cannot see. So I wouldn't say that that is today. We definitely do have a lot of models, both in healthcare, research in terms of medical and various ailments. We just discovered, which is looking very good potential, a cure for Alzheimer's. Now, that cure for Alzheimer's did actually come from AI models that have been looking at this.
Wow.
So there is a lot of really, really good, strong research that is happening in this space right now. Highly, highly recommend going and looking into it a little bit more.
Yeah.
The flip side of this is a question, a hypothetical question that I ask people, and it's one that kind of gives us a different perspective of the healthcare system and how we, again, as consumers, think about it. Let's say that you were diagnosed with some sort of brain problem. Maybe you have a tumor or something, and you would have to have brain surgery. And your neurologist comes into you and says, look, we have to do surgery, but there's a couple of ways we can do this. One way is I will actually perform the surgery. I've got some great tools. I've done this thousands of times, thousands of patients. I will admit that I have about a 95% success rate. But trust me, I've done it before, and you're in good hands. The second option is we have now a new AI powered robot. It's only done this maybe 2 or 3 times, but it has a 99% success rate within that. Which option would you like? Now, I'm going to ask you what your response is, and then I'll tell you what you think. What do we think the other
Y-
people's responses are?
you give me the human. It's not even a consideration. Yeah.
It's not a consideration. So when I ask this of most people, they will all say the human surgeon. I want the human. I don't want an AI in my brain trying to take out a tumor. Yet, as we see in the demographics, the younger demographics, like if you start to get down to Gen Z, 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds, you ask the same question, they are more likely to actually take the AI. Their trust and faith or upbringing in AI is much stronger. But there you go, right? It's
Oh
an
boy.
example of how, even though we do see AI as being leveraged in some fascinating ways in terms of healthcare, there are still some lines that we are not ready to cross when we're thinking about AI and our health.
Yeah. Oh no. When it comes to no way. I just like I said, to me, right now, it's a tool that trained professionals could use to help them. Right. Right now, and here's my box of mac and cheese. 15 boxes of mac and cheese is my prop for the day. But that is great. So I thought that was an interesting one because right, there's certainly a lot of uses out there that I think people are working on that are way beyond the scope of my background and what I do. And that's why I wanted to have you on to start talking about these. So I thought it was a perfect post that popped up just as I was trying to think of a question for you. So the healthcare question is very interesting, and I'm glad to hear that advances are being made, and look forward to hearing more about it. But I think that was a good question for you. So thank you for that. It's a very interesting response. All right, it is time for chip shots, Chris. So these are more short form questions. They are a little bit simpler, professional, yet tell me a little bit more about you, yourself, your personality, and stuff to help out the audience a little, right? So the first question I have for you: if you wrote a book, you're getting the book question. What's one book that significantly influenced your professional or personal life, and how did it impact you?
Well, so I have a fascination with uh, classic literature. So really, if you put anything like from Jules Verne or H.G. Wells, the Time Machine I have over here, I
Yep.
have pretty much every monster book. Frankenstein and Dracula. Um, I'm big into steampunk, so a lot of that kind of flavor is in there. Michael Crichton has been a huge
Sure.
inspiration in terms of writing style and kind of bridging fact and fiction together. So believe it or not, none of it has to deal with any type of professional writing. It's
No,
it's
no.
all creative writing that again, it gives me perspective and ways of thinking about things.
Yeah, no, that's it. Because everybody's going with a nonfiction that I've asked so far, and there's nothing in there that says it has to be nonfiction. For me, I might say The Great Gatsby because that's where I
Yeah.
grew. I grew up in that area, and that's it's an interesting piece of literature and piece of history of just up the street from where I grew up. But interesting. Thank you for that one. All right, so I'm gonna say for you, I think another great one for you is there a particular experience or failure early in your career that taught you a valuable lesson that you still use today? I know you did the Jidger reel already, but I don't know if you can perhaps pull one out from the archives that's different from that one.
Yeah, you know what I often think about, and I use this because I think one of the questions that often also comes up is, have you ever had a leader that has been motivational or successful? And
Mm,
I've had a lot of those. Really, though, what I tend to focus on are the leaders, the managers that I didn't like at all.
hmm.
And I tell people that, if you have a bad experience, a bad manager, that's probably going to teach you more
Yeah,
about failure and opportunities than good leaders. It shows you what you wouldn't want, in a business. It shows you how to treat people better. It talks about, I talk about transparency when you're leading teams. All of that I learned from bad managers.
yeah.
And so I think, my failures often strive from those types of experiences that I can then re-leverage into positive outcomes.
That's a great point because I don't think of it that way either because I've been taught leadership well by very bright people. I coached leadership at Babson for 20 years to students, and I model myself with the right way, but that right way is reinforced and forged by the wrong way that I've seen. Look, I've worked for 30 years, so I've seen the good and the bad, mainly good. If anybody's out there that's listening, but though there's been a few bad out there, right? That everybody's going to run into them if you work for multiple companies for 30 years. And they really have forged and reinforced the right way of doing things. So that's a great take. Thank you. All right, one more for you. If you could spend a day shadowing a leader professional in any industry, who would it be and what would you hope to learn?
Hmm. Elon Musk just came to mind. I know there's a lot of split opinions about him right now, but I mean, just to kind of shadow him for a day would be pretty interesting. I've often also said Bill Gates, would be a fascinating day. Um, despite again who's ever's opinions out there, Donald Trump, shadow him for a day would be interesting. I also think people like um, you know, uh, I was going to say unfortunately, right now we have um, uh, just last night we had a plane crash. I think some people
It's in
might be
Washington,
aware of that
right?
a crash in DC. I've talked about American Airlines often in case studies and examples. Um, Unfortunately, I don't know the CEO's name off the top of my head right now, but spending a day with somebody who is a CEO of a large organization and see how they think about things and how they operate, I think would also be really insightful.
Yeah, no, those are all great. If I was asked this, my instinct right now has got to be Elon Musk because I don't know how he does everything he's doing. There's only 24 hours in a day, and the guy has to sleep at some point. So with everything he's got on his plate, I have zero clue how he does it. So, and considering everything he's involved in, not only the wonderful companies, but now he's involved with the politics thing in the government, and he's getting it all done. And then apparently he plays a video game, and he's a top 25 player of this game. When the hell is this guy playing a video game? I don't know.
I mean, I still play video games, but it's a. I think
But I
that to
don't
the
run four
point.
companies. Yeah, right.
Yeah, to like you could pick a one CEO who manages one company a day, and you could go and get that experience. But imagine if you followed somebody and you visited four different companies and you saw how four different companies
Companies.
operated within some sort of structure. I think I would get I personally would definitely get a lot more out of the variety than just one thing.
One thing. Yeah, no, that's interesting stuff. That's a great take on it. Thank you so much. All right, Krista, thank you so much for joining us. Hey, this has been a absolutely fascinating discussion, and please do let the audience know where they can find you. So you got a book on the way. Let us know when it's out, where they can find you, where they can find your book.
Yeah, so my book actually comes out tomorrow. So depending upon
Oh,
when you listen to this,
it'll be out soon.
uh, I'm going to assume that you're probably listening to this after tomorrow, which is bad podcasting stuff. You'd never say the date of when the podcast
No,
was
it's fine.
recorded. But tomorrow is January 31st. It was actually my father's birthday. He passed away several years ago, but I'm releasing it on January 31st. The book is called Infallible.
There you go.
So I got it right here. So play off of the AI right in the middle of fail for our infallible belief in AI.
Right. So it's not
Um,
just so everybody who's listening and is not looking at the video. It's infallible with AI in the middle, not infallible. If you're trying to spell
yeah.
it.
And when I went through multiple rounds of editing, every single person said you spelt this wrong, and
You
I
spell it,
said,
yeah.
"Yeah, I know this is
Yeah.
intentional."
They
And they're
put it
like,
through their AI, but the bot
"Yeah,
told them it was
oh,
wrong,
I
right?
get it, I get it." Uh, But yeah, so you can find me on my website, chrishood.com, CHRISHOOD.com. And there you can find links to the book, my social, my blog, everything you want to do. If you want to reach out to me and connect, happy to chat.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate you being here. And yes, there are no secrets on your customer your success about 1 to 2 week lead time. So I hope that is out in a couple of weeks. But thank you so much for being here. This was great.
Thanks so much.
That's a wrap. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We hope you found something insightful that will enhance your experiences and drive your success. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave a review and share your thoughts to help us improve the show. Don't forget to head on over to marracxhub.com for more ways to connect with me and learn more about experience management. Until next time, I'm Gary Marra, working hard for your customer and your success.